Julia, welcome to the Soccer Queens podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I am really looking forward to this conversation. We're talking everything periods. So I am so interested in this topic, and I couldn't have thought of a better person to bring on my show to just really talk about how girls and women can truly empower themselves during their menstrual cycle, because I think there's like a big negative view on it, and a lot of girls are like, "Oh, it sucks like being a female and hormones this, hormones that." And what I love about your work is you talk to girls and women on how they can really let their hormones work for them and not against them. And it doesn't have to be this scary thing when we go through like our menstrual phase, and we can actually feel a little bit better during these times. So, why don't you just kind of give an idea of what you do and who you work with, and then we'll get into this.
Yeah, so as far as me, what I do, so I'm an online fitness coach. I'm a certified personal trainer, certified nutritionist through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And then I'm currently working on my women's fitness specialization. And then I'll also be getting a hormone health certification later this year. So lots of fun things coming. As far as fitness coaching, I've been fitness coaching since 2020, but I've been in the fitness industry since 2018. So coming on 6 years, which is awesome. And just as far as what I do, so I work mainly with women like Gen Z, millennials, ages 18 to like 30. Really just helping women, first of all, to, tone up, lose weight, those basic things, but then also like incorporating cycle syncing and just taking care of your hormones into that. Because I mean, in the fitness space, there's obviously a lot of like workout programs and nutritional guidance. But I feel like for women, one thing that's really missing is just like that awareness of like working with your cycle when you can. Obviously, it's not always going to be perfect, but just like sprinkling that in when you can and taking care of your hormones. Because I've just noticed in my own experience, I got into cycle syncing 2 years ago, and I've just noticed like such a difference compared to like when I did not have that in my life. And of course, it's not always going to be just with fitness, it can be with many other things as well. So if you can't do it with fitness, there's other ways to like incorporate that as well too, which is great.
That's so awesome. Now I'm curious, like, why did you get into cycle syncing? Did you not feel good before? Were your hormones kind of like all over the place? Did you have painful periods and you're like, oh, this isn't normal?
Yeah, so the reason why I got into cycle syncing, I used to have like really bad periods. Even like early 2023, I was still having like kind of bad periods. And when I say bad periods, I mean to the point where like when my period would come on the first day, I would be on the toilet, like period poops, like throwing up, like nausea, sweating, chills. Like I would even be on the floor because I'd feel so bad. And that was like not every single period, but like every other one, every 3 periods. Like I would just feel so bad to the point where like I was debating, like, should I call like an emergency vehicle to come like take me to the hospital? Like it was really, really bad. And yeah, I was just like, I mean, I don't want to feel this way. Like this is not normal. Obviously, with a period, like you're not gonna feel 100%, but like it was just taking me out, like to the point where like I would have to like call out of like a meeting, or like I couldn't, go to like I couldn't leave my house or like go to the gym at all. So yeah, that was definitely really alarming to me. And I was like, okay, I need to like see how I can fix this. And then that's how I kind of found the world of cycle syncing, which has really helped.
Oh, that's awful that you went through all that. And I think that is very common for a lot of girls and women, and sadly they think it's normal. They're like, "Well, like when this week comes, I'm going to be on the toilet, or I'm going to have mood swings or feel extra tired." And then you discover this other world and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like I can actually do some things proactively so I can feel a little bit better during these times." Maybe not 100% like you said, but way better than before. So, what are some things that you changed and that you're recommending to females?
Yeah, so as far as recommendations that I have, number one is just start incorporating cycle syncing as a way of your life. So one way that I incorporate that is in my fitness. And it's not really that complicated the way that I incorporate cycle syncing. I work out more so in the gym. I do weightlifting. I'm not like an athlete, but the way that like me and my clients incorporate that is just like changing the intensity of our workouts. So like we're still doing the same weightlifting gym workouts. It's really just the intensity. So for example, like resting longer and maybe like pulling back the weight a little bit, but it's not like, there's any drastic change really going on besides just intensity. Like it's still the same workout program that we're following, so it's not as like difficult as people might assume that to be. So that's definitely one thing that I've incorporated that has helped. And then also too, just like overall productivity. So it's like if you're someone that maybe you can't like do cycle syncing with your fitness journey, then you can like cycle sync your productivity overall. So a way that you could do this is like, let's say, you're a working woman, just like pulling back on like certain projects or like, trying to avoid like scheduling meetings or calls, or even just like, if you're young and you're going out, like maybe, just resting a little bit more when you're in your luteal phase, which is that period leading up to your actual menstrual bleed. And then also like when you're in your menstrual phase, when you're bleeding, also just like kind of pulling back. So the way that I really see it is like my luteal phase, and when I'm on my period, I'm kind of like pulling back. Whereas my follicular phase, the week after my period, and then ovulation, that's when I'm kind of like more in that outward energy. So again, this is not anything too complicated. It's just like, okay, these weeks are inward, these other weeks are outward, and obviously do what you can. Like it's not black or white. It's just, where you can add that in, do that. And then another thing that has helped so much is just like overall being more aware with my diet. So one thing that like I recommend to all my clients, there's this app, it's called Yuka, so Yuka. When you go to the grocery store, like anyone can do this. The Yuka app is free. I just recommend for women, like just scan your products, like look at the stuff that is in your food. I'm not an expert, like I don't know everything about every single ingredient. I've learned a few things along the years, but I feel like, who wants to memorize like every single bad ingredient? Like, no, I'd rather just have the app, like scan it, and then you can like kind of click and like see the breakdown of just like what's in your food. So I just think it brings more awareness. I just think it's really important to know just like what actually is in your food that you're consuming. I really just try to stick to like more whole foods nowadays. Like back then, I used to like fill up my shopping cart with like Fruit Loops and Oreos and just all that processed junk. And not saying that you can't enjoy those things. Like I'm not like, oh, like don't eat that at all. But me personally, I don't really like bring those things into my house. Like if I want a dessert, then I'll like get it at a dinner when I go out. But like I try not to bring in like a lot of junk into my house. So really just sticking to like overall like whole foods, like fruits, veggies. I go to the farmer's market to buy stuff like raw milk, my cheeses, my steaks. If you can shop at a farmer's market, I feel like that's the best way. Like local is the best way. But if you can't, just still grocery store and just shopping more so around the perimeter of the store, you'll find more of those whole food items. So that has really helped my journey as well with cycle syncing.
I always see your Instagram stories and you're posting like the raw milk, the eggs for breakfast. You're eating a lot of steak, which I love. That's my favorite thing to eat. And I think it's funny because I don't know if you get this, but like sometimes when I post that stuff, people think I'm nuts. They're like, wow, you're eating a lot of meat and protein and fats and cholesterol. And I'm like, wait a minute, but you're eating Lucky Charms every day. So, like, why do you think I'm crazy? So, why is it so important for women to get protein and even some of those fats?
Yeah, so I feel like there's so much misconception around that. And funny enough, like a lot of the clients that I've worked with, whenever they come to me, they're eating like, let's say 40 grams of fat and like, 50 grams of protein. And when I look at that, I'm like so alarmed because ironically, then they're eating like a ton of carbs. So it's like a lot of women are typically, eating like 200 grams of like processed carbs and like a bunch of sugar. And not that carbs are bad, but it's just that when you have all these carbs and then you have barely any protein, barely any fat, it's like you're constantly just, spiking your blood sugar, like constantly crashing. And like these women are never feeling truly satiated in anything that they eat. So something really big that I teach to my clients is building balanced plates. So building a plate that consists of a carb, a protein, and a fat to stabilize your blood sugar so that when you eat that meal, you're not having that crash at the end of it. Like, for example, in the morning, if you eat, like, let's say a piece of toast and Lucky Charms, I know people that do that. Like, in this current moment, I know people that do that, and like an hour after they eat that kind of meal, they always say they're like so hungry, like they're craving something, like they want to eat again. Meanwhile, as for me and like my clients, we'll do, for example, let's say, like, we'll have a bagel, but then it's like, we're having a piece of cheese and like eggs, and like that will keep us sustained for, easily like 3, 4, 5 hours. So I think satiation is such an important thing, because if you're constantly feeling like you have to like peck at snacks and like you're always having to pick here and there, then it's like your body's not truly satisfied. So I just think, it's very basic. Again, just like carb, protein, fat. Obviously, it's important for women to, do your own research, like learn about, okay, what is a carb? What is a protein? What is a fat? Where can I get those different sources from? And then just going back to like as far as protein and fat. So for example, like when it comes to my steaks, I try to get those from the farmer's market. I understand that like not everyone can do that, just, cost, location, like different factors can come into play. But I think, if you can start to source some of your food from like a local farm, just know like it's going to be a lot better than grocery store. Again, if you can only afford the grocery store meat, like, by all means get it. Try to get, organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised. But I think if you can even shop from like local farms and like just really get to connect with like local sources and support people that are doing what is right, I think that's the best thing. But again, it's really do what you can with the resources that you currently have right now.
I like that you mentioned that, like, we don't need as many processed carbs as we think. And I've talked to a wide range of registered dietitians in my industry, and there's some that recommend you should have 400 grams a day. And when I see that happening, I'm like, well, that's at the expense of decreasing the protein and the healthy fats on your plate. So it's really not that balanced. But then I've talked to dietitians like Michelle Hearn, she's absolutely amazing. And she said that 150 to 200 grams for athletes is more realistic so that they can get that protein and healthy fats for their hormones. Like women's hormones need those macronutrients, and even for mental health too. And you mentioned just like the spikes in blood sugar are just really bad for girls. And for girls who experience like mood swings during the luteal phase, what better way to regulate that than to up protein and fats? And I'm so glad you mentioned that we don't need as many carbs as people are suggesting.
Yeah, for sure. And even with my own clientele, I think you were saying her name is Michelle, correct? She recommended like 150 to 200. That's pretty much where I have my clients at too. And then yeah, protein, I always try to get it at like 1 gram per pound of body weight. And then fats, I mean, my clients are eating, easily like 60, 80 grams of fat, but like they are noticing the changes, like their libido, they're having better periods, like they're having more energy. So it's really cool just as a coach to like see the transformations that have happened now that I've like incorporated more of that knowledge that I have now.
Man, I'm a huge fan of fats. Like the all the bacon, all the butter, like get some lard in there. Like it's
Or
amazing. And yeah, just so many benefits. And people don't usually consider fat as a source of energy, which is so interesting because it is.
and I think I mean a big reason too why I think like fats are so demonized, just because obviously with the agendas at play and the food pyramid and all the things that go on in this
Such a
country.
disaster with the food pyramid.
Pyramid, I think, is a disaster. And I know as far as like grains, they say like 9 to 11 servings, but a lot of people don't know like that diet that they have set up for us now, that's the kind of diet that like, peasants and slaves would have eaten back then. Like you feed them a lot of grains to keep them like weak and docile. And like I even observe people like just in my everyday life, like family members, for example, that like eat a lot of grains and like less meat, less fat. And they always have like these big, like inflamed guts and like pain in their bodies. And they don't look good from a aesthetic standpoint. And I'd also say just internally too, they have like a lot of just internal health issues. So yeah, I feel like it just goes to show. And I mean, when I observe people that, they're doing like moderate carbohydrates, and then, they're eating like the right animal protein products and the right animal fats, like those people, I mean, they have the best energy, like libido on point, like they're killing it in the gym, like they have a healthy weight, good periods, all that stuff. So I've definitely observed that, just like anecdotal evidence.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would also say people say, and even in my own experience, like much better sleep. Like I don't know what it is, but I think it's because fats are more like anti-inflammatory and they kind of calm your cortisol down. And chronic spike cortisol is the enemy of female hormone health. So yeah, the sleep's improved, and even I'd say skin health as well. A lot of like redness and acne calm down, and it's just amazing. It's like the best skincare out there.
No, seriously, yeah. Because for me, before I got into like animal based, I mean, I've always eaten animal products, but like I'm way more animal based now. And when I was like in my bodybuilding era, I feel like I was eating like a lot of like just processed junk. Like I feel like in the bodybuilding world, obviously when you're competing, no, but like when you're in your off season, like it's just like, oh, whatever fits your macros. So like I'd be, doing like tons of like Ready Whip and like chocolate chips and Reese's and Oreos and Fruit Loops, all that stuff. And like having protein here and there, but like a lot of like just processed carbs. And like I was having the worst acne like on my cheeks, my chin, like the worst acne ever. And like right now, like I don't even have on foundation, like no concealer, like this is just my skin. And I'm like, it's literally insane. It is insane. But it just goes to show like when you really pay attention to what you're putting into your body, like that's the game changer.
I think that's really important for girls to hear because a lot of them struggle with skin issues, and that can really eat away at a girl's confidence. Like I mean, being a teenager is so hard in and of itself, and when you have to deal with like acne and all this nonsense, it can really ruin your confidence. And what better way to give yourself the proper nutrients to really help with your skin health, but then also just your period health in general. And I don't know if you follow, her name is Dr. Elizabeth Bright, but she kind of like debunks like all the myths on cholesterol. And it's really interesting to go down that rabbit hole because we used to think like having like high cholesterol foods is bad, but our hormones are actually made up of cholesterol, which I didn't know. And I'm like, I've been duped. Like all women have been lied to about cholesterol, and it's just so messed up. And I'm just like, dang, like it's no wonder like we're having fertility issues or painful periods, and our brain's made up of cholesterol too, which I also didn't know. And it's no wonder more women have mental health issues than men. It's like we have been sold this like fat-free skim agenda and avoid fat, avoid cholesterol, and we are suffering from it. It's crazy.
Couldn't agree more. And it's just, I mean, it's sad, but it's like you really have to be your own health advocate. I think obviously, like Western medicine, it does serve its purposes. Like I'm not gonna like completely, say that it's bad, but I would say if you want to be like a truly like vibrant, healthy, like, in a good metabolic state, like you probably should not listen to, mainstream health advice. And even recently I had looked at like IVF, like that industry is like booming, like billion-dollar industry that's going to continue to grow and grow and grow every single year. And it's just like you have to connect the two together. Like, like how come, IVF and like infertility is like on the rise at the same time where it's like, we're being sold these lies about our nutrition. So yeah, it's just you really have to be your own health advocate. and do your own research, or just try to look for alternative sources that think outside of like the box that we've been sold.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I've seen so many friends in just the past year lose babies, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" Like, this never was this way before. So that's been really sad, and I just think you're right. Women should be their own advocates and just, like, really do their own research. That's why I had you on, because a lot of female athletes in my space are just not even hearing this from just regular nutritionists. It's very, like, high carb, which, okay, I get we need carbs for energy, but it's like we're decreasing fats at the expense of that. So it's just like really messed up, and I'm just trying to share a different narrative.
I love that. I love that. This fitness space really, really needs it. I'm just like, I'm so over like mainstream like fitness influencer advice. Like, I'm definitely be in that mindset too. Like, I know what it's like to be there, but I did not feel good. Like when I was bodybuilding and doing like fitness influencer stuff, like even like greens powder and pre-workout and like just all this junk. Like I felt so bad. Like even though like I looked my best, I felt so bad. And that's why, like, with my coaching program, like, even though, yes, we do focus on aesthetic results, but it's like, I'm not really like overly focused on it because I tell my clients, like, look, like, if you look super, super, super good, like, if you're super shredded and you have abs and like the biggest butt, but like you don't feel good internally, like, what is that even worth? And like, I can say for myself, like, when I was at my leanest point where like I looked the most fit, from like an aesthetic standpoint, I felt the worst I've ever felt. So I just think that women have to realize that too. Like, if the body that you want is a body that you're not going to actually like feel good in every day, like, and I'm talking internally, like you can look good on the outside, but if you do not feel good on the inside, then I don't think it's worth it. So that's another important thing to remember.
That's such an important point because a lot of girls do struggle with body image. And I really think social media is to blame because they see like all these models on there. And it's like, well, you don't know how they're living their lives, what they're eating. Are they actually truly happy, or are they like really deprived? And you mentioned being satiated earlier in the conversation with food. And I think that's so important because when you are getting a lot of protein and all the meats and all these like really nutrient dense foods, you do develop a good relationship with food because you're like, "Oh, I'm full." And 4 hours goes by and you're not constantly thinking about food. You're just like, "Oh, I'm full. Like, I'm just getting on with my day and being productive." And that's at least what I've noticed. I'm just like, "All right, I'm going to sit down and have like a pound of meat and then move on." And I'm not like, "Oh my gosh, like, what am I gonna have next? Like, am I gonna have that cookie?" Like, it's just like, I'll have it if I, like, crave it or want it, but for the most part, it's like, just be satiated, like, with the whole foods.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And like even like my meals are so satiating where it's like sometimes I can't even finish them. Like that's how satiating the meal is. Like this morning, for example, like I made breakfast tacos. They had like the tortilla, obviously, cheese, plantains, steak on the tacos, and I also made 3 eggs.
That's
And it
so good.
was so filling. I couldn't even
Yeah.
finish. Like, that's how nutrient dense the meal was. I'm like, because I feel like when you eat like empty carbs, like you can just sit there and like eat that stuff. Like when you open a bag of chips, like you can just sit there and like eat the whole bag of chips versus like, when you make a pound of steak, like that is filling, like
Oh,
that
yeah.
whole. So yeah, it's crazy, but it's a great feeling to, just like you said, eat your meal and then you can go about your day. It's not like, oh my gosh, like what snack am I gonna eat now? Like that's just too time consuming.
Yeah, it's just, like, too much extra stress, and it's like, we have a lot of work to do. We have things to get done, especially, like, female athletes, like, they have school and then they have practice after school, like, they don't wanna have to think about this stuff. So, just those bang for buck meals and snacks as well are so key, and I'm sure your breakfast, I mean, that's probably about, like, I'm guessing a 500 to 600 calorie breakfast?
Yeah,
Is
easily.
that about right? Yeah, and a lot of girls would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so many calories," but that's what you need. That's what you need to nourish yourself.
Exactly. I mean, especially like if you're, I mean, especially if you're an athlete. I mean, let's say if you were sedentary, then it'd obviously be different. But it's like, especially for athletes, like, yeah, you need food. With most of my clients, I mean, most of my clients, they're weight training like 3 to 5 days a week. And yeah, I try to work them up like most clients to like over 2,000 calories a day. Mind you, they come to me eating like, 1,200 initially, so it's like a process. I don't like, immediately increase them to that much. Um, but yeah, definitely I do think that if you're gonna be in the gym and like doing cardio and like especially, exerting yourself so much in the world, yeah, you need more fuel to support that.
So what were some of the biggest turnarounds you had with your period, like living this lifestyle?
Yeah, so biggest turnaround, would definitely be, like, less cramps. So now, like, when I get my period, I wouldn't say that it's like I don't have any cramps, but it's like it's super subtle. It's more like an ache than like a cramp. I feel like with the cramps, like, you feel like your uterus, like, literally contracting. I used to feel that. Now it's just like it feels a little bit achy, but, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, it'd probably be like a 1 or a 2, like, it's not bad. Back then, it would easily be like an 8 to a 10, like, it was really bad. So I've definitely just noticed, like, an overall just decrease in, the amount of, like, yeah, pain and discomfort that I have, and then also too, when I used to get my period, and even, like, before my period, like, I used to have, like, really bad, like, mood PMS, like, really bad, like, mood swings, like, once it was, like, 3 days out from my period, like, I would be like depressed, angry, like insufferable, like just the worst attitude. And like right now, like I'm on my period, I'm on period day 3. And like I feel totally normal. Like I didn't have any PMS, like maybe a little bit like emotional, like I'll cry for like stupid things, but like I'm not having these like crazy emotional outbursts that I used to have. So that's been amazing. And those are definitely like the two biggest things that I've noticed. It's just, yeah, like the overall cramping and then just the overall mood. And I feel like that's two big things that I see a lot with people that they struggle with is like they just have like really bad period cramps. Like they have to, take like a lot of like painkillers to like take that pain away. And I just feel like I mean, there is a time and a place for that stuff. I don't think it's like ideal, but it's like, yeah, if you need to take it, then whatever. I just think it's not ideal. So you want to kind of get to the root cause though, so that you can avoid that and not have to like rely on, like a painkiller to get you through your period.
I know those, like, debilitating cramps you're talking about, and, yeah, a lot of women struggle with that, but again, it's is so amazing that we can make that much better and not as crippling, and, yeah, I mean, it's just so powerful, and it's really time to just change the narrative on the menstrual cycle. It doesn't have to be this, like, volatile roller coaster. Like there'll still be ups and downs because of the ebb and flow of hormones, but it doesn't need to be these like crazy extremes that you see on like TV.
Exactly. I feel the same way. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Knocked Up with Seth Rogen. Oh, there so there's like this one scene when they're at like the gynecologist and she's about to have her baby and they're like in a fight and he's like, I know this isn't you right now. It's your hormones. Screw you, hormones, not Allison.
Oh,
Hormones, screw you.
that
And I'm
is,
like, okay, yes, like we can blame it on the hormones, but at the same time, we can like balance our hormones out so we don't blame it on the hormones.
yeah,
But
right.
that
That's
movie was great.
it's so true.
It's crazy. Okay, let's we'll wrap this up in about 10 minutes, but let's kind of shift gears away from nutrition. I know you talk a lot about like femininity and kind of just like leaning back into your womanhood to kind of balance your hormones and I feel into like in today's day and age women are like wanting to like always like go 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 and like be these boss babes. And look, I'm all for that. Like we both own businesses, but I also think there can be a time for just like really relaxing and like receiving and having like self-compassion. So like what are you teaching some of your clients about that and how does it help with their hormones?
Yeah, so I agree with what you said 100%. I used to be like completely in that boss babe mindset as well. And again, like I think, women, we are so capable. Like I really do think it is a beautiful thing that like women can actually like working at an education. I was kind of like back and forth between that, but now I'm like, yeah, I think it's a good thing. I like that women do that for themselves. But I also do value, self-care and like slowing down. So I really encourage my clients. I mean, most of my clients work 9 to 5. So like, yeah, they're out in the world, like they're working, they're doing their thing. But I encourage them like on the weekends, like take a step back, like on just because it's a weekend does not mean that you need to be at like every happy hour or everywhere you get invited or like at the club or like, it's okay to like step back and relax. And I think there's just so much power in saying no. And I wish like when I was younger, like when I was a teenager, I used to just say yes to like plans every weekend. And I wish I would have just said no and like just taken care of myself, especially like for these athletes that you're helping. I know those are younger girls, of course. So I don't know their schedule, but just like when they can, like when you have a free day, like really like take advantage of that. Like you don't need to be outside pushing every day. Like there is beauty in just like sitting in your bed and lighting a candle and reading a book or like being on the couch with like your blanket watching YouTube or it's so funny. I even have like a self-care drawer or like cabinet in my bathroom, and it's like filled with like Epsom salt and like bubble bath and like face masks and eye masks and lip masks and like just nail files if I want to do my nails. So just like, fun little things that I can do to relax. And it feels really good. I just feel like it's nice to, pull back and just like take care of yourself. And I feel like when you do that, and you feel more equipped to like go back to like your boss babe or like your pushing mentality or whatever it is, just I think it's nice when you can like reward yourself, then you feel like charged up to like go out and do it again, and then you come back and just, yeah, it's that ebb and flow like your hormones.
I really like that, like, not saying yes to everything and just kinda having those boundaries up or just overall having compassion with yourself, and if you do go to, like, an event or where you have to, like, socialize, like, don't feel like you have to be this, like, extroverted butterfly if you're in your menstrual phase, like, it's okay to just kinda, like, be low key and just kind of observe the room.
For sure. And I think like going back to that, like when you're mentioning like going out, I mean, sometimes going out actually can be a form of self-care, but I think it really depends on where you're at in your cycle. So for example, like if I'm in my follicular phase, so like more so my ovulation phase, like ovulation is when I really feel like that outward desire to like go out and like you want to be sexy and like socialize. So I'd just say, if you're gonna do those things, like I would just try to like kind of optimize it in your cycle where you have more of that outward energy versus like when I'm on my period or if I'm in my luteal phase and like I don't really want to be outside like that. Like maybe on like a low key like pizza date or something, or but really interested, I'd rather just like be home like in my own space. So also self care is not like one size fits all. Like kind of just go off your cycle and then do what feels good.
That's brilliant. Now, you live in Miami, right?
Yes, I live in Miami.
So, that's crazy because I'm sure you're surrounded by this whole, like, you gotta go to the club every weekend, you gotta go to live, you gotta, like, take shots, but you don't drink, right?
No, I haven't drank in 5.
Okay, I love that because I don't really drink either, like, just no desire.
Yeah. No.
So, what made you make that decision?
Yeah, so as far as drinking goes, when I was in high school, I mean, like, I figure most high schoolers, you go to your parties, you do whatever you're doing, people are like drinking, whatever. When you're young, I think there's a lot of like excitement and just like wow, when it comes to that. But yeah, I had my fair share of like partying in high school. So by the time I got to college, I was just kind of like over it. I think in college, I probably went to like only one party, and like the one party that I went to, I got blackout drunk. And yeah, I literally woke up the next morning and I was just like, I'm never doing this again. Like, I don't want to feel like this because I feel like when it comes to college, it seems like a lot of the narrative is that like, I'm going to go to college these 4 years, get my education, but I'm also going to like party hard these 4 years. Like, I just think when you look at a lot of people's college experience, it's just a lot of like partying, getting drunk, sleeping around, da 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 da. And I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like, after just one night of getting blackout drunk, I was like, I do not want to live the next 4 years of my life feeling this way or doing this. I'm just like, I'm not going to do it. It's not conducive to who I want to be. This is not going to help my growth. So, yeah, I mean, I just made that decision. I didn't think I would stick to it, if I'm being honest. Like, I did not think, I thought I would probably drink the next weekend, but then I was just like, the time went on and I was like, you know what, I feel really good about this. Like, I feel really good not waking up in the morning with a hangover, hanging out with people that probably don't care about me. Not saying that you can't, find good friends in college. Of course you can, but it's just like, I don't know. In the party scene, I don't find that those are like the best people. That's my opinion. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how it happened. Just I made that decision one day and I just stuck with it. And now I'm going on 6 years in 2024. And best decision I've ever made. I don't regret it. I don't miss alcohol at all. And one big issue that I do see with drinking is that a lot of people say that they drink because they feel social pressure. That's a big reason why people they they'd have shots. They go to the club is because of the social pressure. You want to fit in, and yeah, it's just like I don't want to have to fit in with those kind of crowds. So even though I live in Miami, like I don't hang around people that like are in that kind of scene. Like the friends that I have, like they're in relationships, they're going to church, like they go to the farmers market, they want to go thrift. So yeah, I mean, I very much live in a party city, but by no means do I hang out in those circles. So I don't really have like that temptation in my life because my friends just they don't do that. I wouldn't choose those kind of friends because again, like I think not that you should never go to the club. Like I think that's something to be enjoyed. Like I definitely had my time doing that. I've gone to the club before and like yes, it was fun, but again, like just the next morning, I've never woken up the next day and like felt like a better person or like more enlightened or like smarter. Like I never felt like it gave me anything. So it's just like if this is not giving me anything, like why do I want to do that? But I think,
Yeah.
no hate on anyone that wants to experience it because I experienced it myself. So
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever you want to do and think is best for you, but I think sharing your story is a great message because going to church and waking up every day all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and not hungover, I mean, that sounds amazing, and it sounds like it's just, like, a more, like, steady life instead of, like, these, like, huge ups and downs. Like, yes, it's, like, really exciting to go to a party and, like, live it up that night, but then you, like, crash the next morning, and you do that for many years, and that can really take its toll on your mental health, and a lot of like my college friends who are still in the party scene, like they struggle with like anxiety and stuff. And I just wonder if it's because of all those like highs and lows and then like the alcohol and that also does ruin your hormonal health too. But yeah, it's just fascinating. I mean, you can do what you want, but I'm on board with the calm life and staying sober.
sure, yeah, and it's like it's not that you can still like enjoy your life. Like I mean, I still go out. I like to go more to like, nice dinners. Like that's kind of more of my scene. Or like, like a food festival or do like, dance classes. Like I love classes, just like learning new things. And it's like I still have so much fun. Like I'm very much still social, but I just don't need the alcohol to be social. I feel like that's such a powerful thing. I think that it's a really dangerous mindset to be in. Like when I hear people say like, "Oh, if I don't have a drink, then like I can't dance," or like, "Oh, if I don't have a drink, then like I can't talk to that guy," or like I can't talk to that girl. I'm like, that's such a dangerous mindset. Like and that's what I didn't want. I didn't want myself to have to rely on alcohol to like connect with others or to like feel like I want to dance. Like, no way. And it's so funny, like last year in 2023, or no, 2022, sorry, I had gone to the club with like a couple of my coworkers. Again, like I don't like the club, but like I could enjoy.
Which club did you go to?
I went to it was the Komodo Lounge in
Oh
Miami.
yeah.
Komodo restaurant, and you have the lounge. And yeah, like I was obviously sober at that point. And I told my friends that night, I was like, "Oh, like if we go to the club, like we're only gonna go for 1 hour." And ironically, I was the only sober one, and I was actually dancing until like 5 a.m. in the morning. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
trust me, like sober people can still have fun, but you have to learn how to not like rely on alcohol. Like I no longer rely on that as like a crutch to be myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I've actually seen that a lot with people who are sober. They tend to last longer through the night because they're just high off of life, like just or like the music, just living it up, being goofy. And it's also like fun, like from a sober perspective, when you're out and you're just like watching everyone, like you're like, oh shoot, did I used to like act like that?
Yeah, I'm like it's pretty
Oh
embarrassing.
no. That's so funny. Well, let's wrap this up. So, what advice would you give to girls who are kind of like struggling with terrible period symptoms and like really want to improve?
Yeah, so one thing that I actually want to add that I just thought of is with your period products, one thing that can't recommend enough to all women is switch out your period products. So I used to buy like the Always or like the Tampax,
Mm.
and like I know that those have like fragrances, they have like cotton that has like a lot of like chemicals sprayed on them. So I just recommend, first of all, like especially if you're putting tampons literally inside of you, switch those out, and then even your pads too. So just some brands that are really good is Rael. It's Rael. I don't know if I said that right. And then also there's another brand called Lola that they both use like organic cotton, like no fragrances, and just like very minimal ingredients. So definitely, yeah, switch out your period products because obviously your body is going to be absorbing those chemicals from what you're putting in, up in you. So definitely make that switch. And then like we said, nutrition. So I said download that app called Yuka and just start, learning more about your food. Like again, it's not that you have to be 100% perfect, but just make little swaps where you can. So, if you're buying a certain brand of chips and like, maybe there's a brand of chips that, doesn't have like canola oil and all these different additives, and like, make that little switch. Or, even like with if you're buying fruit, like maybe switch to buying organic for some things. Like just those little swaps, they add up. Because one thing that I think is so important to realize is that when it comes to like this whole, non-toxic living and like switching out products and stuff, I mean, it can be costly. So I would just say like, take it step by step, but it really does add up. I've been doing that now for 2 years, like just being more aware and like switching out products. And now I'm like really seeing it pay off, especially like in my period cramps and just how I feel overall. So I would just say, start small. Like if you start now, imagine where you'll be, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. And then, like I said, also just incorporating cycle syncing as a whole. So the way that I like to see cycle syncing again is just follicular phase, ovulation is more of like the outward energy, whereas my luteal phase and my menstrual phase, which is when I'm bleeding, that's more of my inward energy. Again, this is not completely black and white. Like, yes, when I'm on my period, like here I am doing a podcast right now, like technically this is outward energy, but like for example, last night I got 9 hours of sleep. So it's like, doing what you can to take care of yourself a little bit more, depending on where you're at in your cycle. So yeah, those would be my recommendations. Really, just being aware of your period products, what it is that you are consuming. Like we talked about, getting in more protein. Whenever I write my grocery list, I always make sure like I am going like carbs, proteins, fats. Like I'm always making sure I'm getting each macronutrient when I make my grocery list for the week. And I would just say, make grocery shopping like a part of your normal routine. Like I tell my clients, every Thursday or every Friday, like make your list in the morning and like go buy your food. And then just like, pick a day, Saturday or Sunday night, to just like meal prep a few things. I feel like it's super helpful when at least you like meal prep protein. So it's like, on a Sunday evening, like, for example, cook like a pack of ground beef and like a pack of chicken breast, or like a pack of, some kind of white fish and like your favorite steak, just like having stuff on hand. I feel like that's really what it comes down to. Like I eat more protein when I'm just prepared. So I'd say just, prepared to succeed versus, not doing anything and then preparing to fail. That's really what it's all about.
That's such an awesome message to end on. And it just comes back to being proactive with the menstrual cycle and just not being a victim of it. And I see too many girls kind of just cursing their own gender and saying it's so hard being a female. But like we just showed in this podcast, it doesn't have to be. And I would challenge everyone, are you really practicing true female empowerment? true female empowerment is not complaining and, playing the victim. It's actually taking charge of your health and your hormones. So I really challenge you to that. And if there's guys listening to this, a lot of male coaches listen to this podcast, please share this episode with your female athletes. You don't have to lecture them on this. I would never want a man to lecture me on the menstrual cycle, but we're creating this podcast so that you can share the resource and so girls can watch it themselves and learn from other women who are living and breathing this lifestyle and have improved period symptoms. So this has been really inspiring, and I know a lot of people are going to be impacted by it. And I will include Julia's social media links in the caption below. So be sure to give her a follow or reach out. And thank you so much, Julia. Everyone, I will see you on the next episode.